first of all, I want to showcase what Hong Kong Rita is. And with full disclosure, I am a board member of Hong Kong Rita. It is the place where I feel the dumbest that I have ever felt, because all of the science I don't understand.
There's a lot of places that make me feel like that these days, but yeah.
So Brooke, would you like to cue the Hong Kong Rita slide? Ooh, is our video not working? Brooke? So that's a little bit about Hong Kong Rita, and Edwin Keh is the CEO of that. And then we have a short, for all of you who like sport, you must know who PUMA is. So we're just going to show you that it's PUMA's like 75th anniversary. So Brooke.
For over 75 years, we've witnessed moments that will last forever. Records and trophies, firsts and onlys, game-changing innovations. From the heroes we admire to the joy of watching them play. Our history defines us, inspires us, and pushes us into the future. Celebrating 75 years of changing the game. PUMA, forever faster.
So obviously that's the PUMA video. And now the chief sourcing officer actually is also, or sustainability also reports up to the chief sourcing officer, who is Anne-Laure Descours. And one of the things that I find was really interesting is that they've been producing a sustainability report for longer than anybody else. But the big thing that they actually do, which is really impressive, is this Voices of a Generation thing. So if any of you are interested in what they're actually doing behind the scenes in their sustainability effort, that is not something that you normally see, take a look at both their sustainability part of their of PUMA, but also this is their regen report, which they've gotten some podcasts on Spotify, which you can actually go in and listen to exactly why they do the things that they do and what they're trying to change. So with these two big, knowing these two things about your the two speakers that are that you get a chance to listen to as a fly on the wall, we've divided it in our conversation into four big sections. The first one is digital design, less waste and better product. The second one is waste and circularity, how you use waste as a resource, and the reverse logistics of recycling. Some of the science of sustainability, and at the end, some advice for our collaborative future. So with that, I'm going to bring on Edwin and Anne-Laure?
We are an industry that is old school. We take we're analog for sure, right? We take cloth and we turn them into garment and we dye them in the right colors and hope somebody will buy them at that price. This transformation from a very old school manual skill-based industry to something that is technology driven, data driven is difficult, right? Not everybody's going to make it because they just don't have that in-house info.
I think not everybody's going to make it for two reasons. A, because of it, going back to regulations, the regulations are really shaping the way we do business today. I mean, yeah, we talked about it. Without the regulations, a lot of the appetite for transformation will not be there.
Right.
Definitely. So what EU has put in place as a baseline for people to do business has forced a lot of companies to onboard the journey of transformation, especially on the digital side. Now, not everybody has the capability to do it. And it always goes back to me to two simple things. A, you need to define what problem you want to solve. And, people jump into digitalization not thinking through, what is it I want to do here? What is it the problem that I have as a company that I want to solve? So, for instance, if I look at, digital design is probably one the problem we want to solve is reduce waste when we do a project. Okay, so that's one of the topics for me when we go into the 3D design is how can we make use of 3D design to build a product which has less waste so we can minimize that, which turn out to be better from the product standpoint and from the price standpoint. So that's one of the problems we are solving on that. And the second problem is when you go for 3D design is how can I bring that product in front of the buyer very fast so I can make a decision faster? So starting by defining what is it you want to achieve for me is key. The next big thing for everybody is where are my data and what data do I need? It's all about data. And in this business today, you have a lot of miracle providers trying to sell you the moon. But if you haven't built an infrastructure, a solid infrastructure where you can collect your data, it's still going to be very hard for you. So nobody can do that for you. You have to build internally your capability to get this information into your system.
That's difficult, right? But that's a culture change, right?
Well, that's a mindset and cultural change.
Right, exactly.
But if you haven't built this capability internally to have access to data, there is no way you can be compliant to regulation. You can work on digitalization because data is basically, it's like when you cook. If you have no ingredients to cook, what are you going to cook? Yeah. Today, for me, my cooking ingredients are data. If I don't have data, there's no way we can cook any product. So that is starting there. And how you build that is critical. One chance we had at PUMA, it was a decision made 10 years ago, which was very much forward thinking at that time. We built our own PLM system. And because we built our own PLM system, now it's very easy around that PLM system, which is the backbone of everything we do. This PLM system is really the backbone of the data pool. If you haven't built a solid PLM system, doing all the transformation, the changes, the amendments is difficult when you rely on a third-party provider. When you have built that internally, that gives you speed and a lot of agility in addressing it. But to me, we're always going back to what is the problem we want to solve and what are the data we need to solve that problem. And too many people shortcut and forget these very two key elements in the foundation of the conversation. Huh?
Yeah. But I'm going to suggest that because PUMA made that decision, it actually built more internal capabilities and deeper understanding of the system and the data structure, so that when it came time to mine the system for new and more data, it is a lot easier. It is a lot easier. You're exactly right.
It is easier, yes.
Right. If you're relying on some external third party, it will take them a long time just to understand what is it that you want them, right? And they're not subject matter experts for that industry, so it's difficult.
No, you're completely right. Yes.
Thoughts there that I'm very curious to hear you talk about this. One is this I want to go back to culture change. I think one of the culture change is the whole way that we do design. designers used to lead the charge, right? I have some unique vision of what beautiful looks like, and then I make this product and hope that somebody will buy it. Well, now there's more and more businesses that are actually doing away with the whole designer-led product development idea to say, okay, let's just look at social media, we'll throw things out. If it sells, we're going to make them. So it is a bottom-up as opposed to a top-down a model. When you think about that, I want to, while you react to that, and the other one I want to make sure we touch on is the reverse logistics of recycling too, because we have a front-end challenge, and I believe we also have a back-end challenge, because once upon a time we sell things, and that was it. The point of sale is the last time we see the consumer. Now, extended producer responsibility said, oh no, now you have to be responsible for doing something else with that. And that's sort of out of scope with our old business model. So
yeah, I mean, going back to your first reflection on design, I'm with you on that the way we're going to design tomorrow is changing very fast. And I think going back to data, the data is going to drive a lot of what we need to have as a product to make it sellable. It's always going back to data. It's social media data, it's whatever you name it, but it's data. And that data will define, how many products you need, what kind of product you need, and what price level you need. There is a lot of information out there. But if you look at the luxury business and you look at all the top luxury designers, they don't need data. They still are in the space of thinking, what they wish to see as a fashion. So if you only rely on data, I think from a fashion standpoint, it's going to be really, really, really sad. And I think the dynamic of creativity will die. So it's probably going to be something much more useful for mass markets addressing design. But I think when you go into premium and high end, you cannot rely on data. It's going to be, and I really do hope as a French person, coming from a very long history in fashion, that this capability to create something new and unique will remain. And it's not going to be based on data, because we need the human brain to continue to think. And if the human brain just rely on data, your brain will not function anymore. You're going to become lazy. Okay, but
to a French person, everything is art, right? And what we're saying is, it's a science, and I think we have to juggle.
I agree with you, but at the same time, look at some niche brands and look at some really high creativity that has happened in the market, in the business, of people not using data, just using their brain and being curious about something. And I do hope for the human being we remain curious and open and try stuff without relying on data. That's my hope, personal hope, as a person. Okay, but I'm with you on the data piece. Helping to shape a certain product capability that's going to address the consumer needs, because we have extracted their own data from social media, and what they think before they think. I think personally, as a human person, it's very sad, but this is where things are going in a certain direction, and we're gonna have to go with that to a certain extent. Now, if you go to your question on the reflection about circularity and making use of waste and what's going to happen to a product after it's finished, for sure, we as a brand will become more and more responsible to make use of what we sell when it's returned back to us. That's going to come. How quick? I don't know, because between the desire to make the brand or the distributor more responsible to manage their waste to the reality of that happening is going to take some time, because it's complex and it includes many, many stakeholders into that conversation. And the manufacturing technological and scale capability is not there yet. But realistically, it's going there, and especially in the apparel industry. And Hong Kong Retail has been at the forefront helping the brands to start building this capability. But this is the thing we talk many, many times here, Edwin. It's a collaboration between multiple stakeholders that will make it possible. Okay. And if you talk specifically about, end of life of garment collection back from the brand, we have technology today, and PUMA has been building its own capability to collect back, old polyester garment, turn that back into a yarn and a new product. And we're going to extend, moving from recycled polyester into waste recycled polyester. We're going to get there. We're starting building the capability between China and Turkey. It's fine, but we cannot do it alone. We need the chemical industry to be there, and they need to invest into all these new innovations. They're going to be critical in making that waste recyclable. And then we need all the brands to collaborate together, because the scale is has to
Yes.
be bigger than just
Yes.
us. And we talked a lot about it. And there is, and this is one element where I'm very hopeful, because I see a lot of goodwill from multiple brands to really work together, trying to address a problem, especially in Europe, because we know alone nobody can do it. That's clear. It's not possible.
Right. I quite agree with you. You know, especially when we talk about post-consumer recycling, because you're getting a lot of different things back from, you know, all the different, yeah. And so at that scale and at that complexity, I mean, at least if nothing else, I think we're learning in recent years is that you have to have sortation and you have to have separation technologies, because otherwise you throw everything in a 40-foot container and you off to Africa or Pakistan or somewhere, and by the time you open up that container, the value of everything in that container has dropped so much because we haven't sorted and separated it properly, and so that is
But you
going
know,
to,
it really is also going back to one principle, something I've been saying many times for the last 2 years. I think we all need to acknowledge, recognize, and accept that waste is becoming a resource. It's not
Yes.
waste.
absolutely.
And you know, the moment you start looking at waste as a potential resource, you act differently. And this is why, going back to design, you know, if you look, say, okay, on the design standpoint, I have to minimize my waste when I make my design, but I also have to think about the end of life of my product. So
Right.
if I go to mixed composition, I'm creating a problem. If I go to mono composition, then I'm basically facilitating the recycling process. So there's going to be much more conversation also with the design community to make sure that what we do can be managed at the end of life and come back, you know, being recycled. So
Yeah.
I'm hopeful. There are a lot of initiatives at the moment. There are multiple, you know, from Asia to Europe to the US, multiple goodwills and multiple investment in that space. The challenge, again, is to bring people together, because we need to assess what is feasible and not feasible, and we need to get together to bring that to scale as fast as possible. And no brand can do it alone. No chemical industry can do it alone. It has to be really a collaboration.
Yeah. I think if there's a message there, it is there for the operators. There is no one silver bullet.
No.
Here's solution that will be it. I think it will be chemical recycling, mechanical recycling, biological methods, and all sorts of other ways of dealing with the way with the post-consumer materials of stock that we are generating right now.
And you're doing quite a lot of those things actually at Hong Kong Rita. You're doing all the mechanical separation, the, you know, chemical separation. You're working with all of the stakeholders. And what is, you know, have you got an example of actually one of the things that you've done that actually shows everybody that this can be done? Because it's actually a little bit of an overwhelming task when you actually say, I've got a 40-foot container, I've got so much stuff. How do I even think about the stuff that's in there, right?
Well, you look at some of the technologies that we've been commercializing recently, like for instance the hydrothermal separation, the green machine technology, basically acknowledges the fact that a lot of the product out there right now are blended, and so first thing we have to do is to separate the blends so that we can deal with monomaterials. So you start. So that has become quite a successful a commercialization effort for us, because it's a little bit of a no-brainer. If you just use heat and pressure, and you can separate and get high value products, and you can do a lot of things with those products, why wouldn't you? So I think that that's a recent example, but we also have other separation methods using triboelectric, so a dry method to separate materials, and then the use of enzymes and fermentation methods to break things down and create new types of materials. We recently announced, for example, that we have successfully made materials out of bacteria, just capturing the cellulose from bacteria, a new classification of material. So I think all that is to say that I go back to, it's not the science that's the big challenge. It's the business case. It's the reverse logistics. It's some of the separation, and so I think a lot of people are very comfortable with how our current global supply chain operates, It works. It's cost effective, but we need to transform it to something that is more circular.
You know, Edwin, yes, it's cost effective, but if you look at the scarcity of resources today, look at water, okay, and going into the tier 2 level of fabric mills and dyeings and everything. If you don't address the water usage in our industry, at some point there will be no water for us to dye in. I mean, no water, but water will be redirected for people to drink and not people to get t-shirts. So, you know, this is where I see also a great deal now of innovations and investment from the manufacturing, from the supply chain part to say, okay, let's do our product better using less. It's not just on the recycling process, it's just on the process of making something. Let's make sure that we can be better. Renewable energy is becoming a big topic also for everybody, because at some point you're gonna end to be also self-sufficient in your factory to generate the energy that you need to make sure that you can produce your garment or your fabric. For me, one of the biggest things we're gonna have to watch is really water, because we can see clearly that the water will become a problem for this planet. And our industry consumes a lot of water, starting from cotton and all the way through making fabrics and dyeing fabric and finishing fabric. And that is a piece where the industry will have to work harder to get better solutions for us to continue operating. So back to what you just said, that, you know, the supply chain is comfortable the way we produce today. Yes, now, but if you project yourself 5 to 10 years from now, the way we do it today will not be sustainable in 5 years.
Yeah.
Reality. Yeah?
Water is a great illustration. For example, I'll give you some examples of projects that we're working on. So using use of cellulose waste to create super absorbent polymer so that we don't have to irrigate. So we've been growing irrigation-free cotton. We're on a 3rd or 4th large-scale experiment in India right now. Using hydroponics as a new way to grow cotton, reducing 95% of the water that is used, but in also dealing with some of the issues that we may be facing that you've mentioned, Anne-Laure, which is that we want to grow food. We want to free up the land to grow food, one, and then two, extreme climate conditions now mean that there are lesser and lesser areas in the world that is suitable to grow things because it's too hot or it's too dry. And then on the back end, how do we clean up the wastewater so that we can reuse the water? So the use of macroalgae to basically take the pollutants as food so that we can clean up the water, but also at the same time have a new source of cellulose. Saltwater-based materials that we can grow much more efficiently without using land and freshwater resources. And then more recently, our sound wave, acoustic wave technology to clean up microplastics in pollution. All that to say that it's one problem, but there are multiple pathways to solve for different solutions for that. Yeah.
So this is great, because actually, you know, when we talk about all these problems, it's really nice to know that there are solutions that are actually not only in experimental stage, but actually can be in industrial and actually need to be scaled up.
This industry 30 years ago, and making a t-shirt was getting fabric, cut fabric, make t-shirt and ship. Okay, that was extremely simple. And I was taking 90% of our time. Today, this is taking 2% of my time. Okay, and 98% is about what we discussed earlier, you know, defining the problem, looking at data, getting the data, getting this transparency, this traceability that we need today to understand what is our footprint, what we do, what we are doing is really impacting the environment and the planet. This is something that is in every day. So from my job, and I started as a buyer, you know, for me it was all about getting a nice fashion garment to be put on the shop floor and then getting on to consumer. From that day to what I do today, I really believe that our job has changed tremendously because we have a responsibility. And beyond that responsibility, we have to have a knowledge that we used not to have in the past. And this is a lot of things that you've been doing here, Janice, is to retrain people. The industry has to be retrained, and this really has to become much more technically focused and technically savvy. This industry has to be very close to their tier 1 and tier 2s. I mean, 20 years ago, you had reverse auction when you were buying a T-shirt, sending the same product to 10 suppliers and the cheapest guy would get the product. These days are over because it's not about the price. It's not about, you can always get a decent price for the product you do, providing you have the competence, the knowledge, and you build that collaboration with the tier 1 and tier 2. So collectively, you build the best product ever at the price the consumer is ready to buy. This is so you take it from a completely different angle. And if you haven't built that capability technically, connected to digitalization, to whatever you want, but if you haven't built that shift in culture, in mindset, that you need to understand what you are doing before you do it, right? Yeah. If you haven't built that internally, there is no way you can be in business in 5 or 10 years. Yeah. And you see that now, a lot of these very transactional brands and retailers are dying one after the other because you cannot, the big ones are different, but if you look on the brand level, if you haven't built this family culture, this collaboration culture, you cannot survive in this business. Right. And it takes you time to get there. It's a transformation. I joined PUMA from another organization that was, a very sourcing, costing, driving organization. When I joined PUMA, I was shocked to see the level of collaboration with the tier 1s. And we expanded that, to tier 2s now. And you learn from each other. And now it's going beyond, I'm talking to people from the beauty industry. I'm talking to people to the car industry. I'm talking to people from the chemical industry, because we all learn from each other and we have similar problems. And there are solutions you can share between different industries to address your problems. So it's much more than just making a t-shirt through a nice design. It's much bigger than that. And to me, when I see the amount of investment, transformation, and commitment the factory had on tier 1 and tier 2s, it's fascinating. Yeah. And we learn from them every day. Really, I really do learn from the tier 1, tier 2s. I spend my time going to factories. I was in Vietnam last week. Yeah, I was before that in China, and then I'm going to Bangladesh. I spend my time going on the factory floor because this is where you see things changing. And where you see, working conditions better, environmental conditions better, and you see the level of investment and technological transformation is happening there before it's happening at the front end. Yeah. And this is why the job we do today, for me, as a chief sourcing officer, has nothing to do with the job I used to do 10 years ago. Nothing. Absolutely. It's connecting the dots between multiple stakeholders to make it better. And we can talk, Edwin and myself, for hours because we connect the dots together. But this is you have so much more in multiple brains than just one brain.
Yeah. No, I can attest to the last 2 times I ran into Anne-Laure was in airport lounges or on airplanes. So I know that she travels a lot. And that also I was on the same flight with her and she was flying coach. And I think her advice to me was that every now and then you need to sit in the back of the plane so that you don't lose touch. I think that's really good advice. So I agree with everything that Anne says. But I would also go back to something that Anne said earlier, which is that you need to work in partnership. So I think this is the same thing. If you're working, you need to sort of team up with other people, like-minded people working towards the same things, because I think you need a lot of resilience. Not everything that we do is it's going to take longer than we think. It's going to cost more. Yeah. So to build resilience, you need to be in a group that supports each other, so that I think the way to think about this is that you need to be productive in your day job. So you need to do stuff so that you earn permission to stay in the role that you're in. So do the operational stuff, but then leave enough capacity so that you can do the big picture stuff. And there, I think you have to be ambitious for the right things. And by that, I mean, you really have to look at what you're doing and how you use your job to actually do something that is a lot bigger than, but in the long term, much better for the high value contribution to the organization that you're in, and do something better for the industry. So resilience, ambition, and then probably finally all that, you have to have some degree of optimism. You just, you're going to be really depressed if you look at the overwhelming bad stuff that is going on in the world, you know, wars, famines, and all that kind of stuff. But you have to stay optimistic that, you know, with the right team of people, with the right attitude, working together, that we will get to the right solutions. So just work on the right things, I think, and the rest will
yeah, and I could not agree more with you, Edwin. And that's why the partnership, you know, bringing people, like-minded people together, you know, at times when you feel a little bit depressed, you reach out to these people, and then you get, you know, a boost, and then you continue again, because yes, it's hard and it's tough. But when I look at how much innovation transformation has happened the last 5 years, it's actually fascinating. And then there is a great deal of energy and commitments, and especially in developing countries. Every time I go to Bangladesh, I come back, I'm like, wow, I mean, they really believe in it and they're acting on it. I was in China recently, you know, when I go to China, I'm like, wow, they really believe in it and they really make it happen. So, you know, that's why I really do encourage people to go on the ground and to really be there and see with their own eyes. And you know, one other point that I want to make, and also for the audience listening to us, everybody has ideas. And recently I was in an event in Sweden at the Volvo headquarters, a fantastic event, you know, with different people from different industries talking about digitalization transformation. There was one guy from one big company, FMGC company, and he's basically CIO, but also managing the factories. And the guy travels around the world in all the factories they have. And he was sharing that he's learning so much from his people in the factory, bringing some really smart ideas, practical ideas, simple ideas to make things better. There is a lot that comes from bottom up, while there is, you know, from an up level, you see the big visions and you see, you know, where things need to be going, but so much energy, knowledge, capability come from bottom up. And that's why I'm spending so much time at the factories, because this is where I can tell you I've been learning the most. And then you have, you know, the capability to share best practices between people, because then you have on-site conversation. I mean, COVID for me was the worst time of my career because I couldn't go anywhere. I couldn't learn anything. When you're on the factory floor between a tier 2, a tier 1, also tier 3, wow, when you see what's happening there, it's just fantastic. So that gives me the energy, the optimism, and that's why everybody has a voice here. Everybody has a capability to share some, you know, easy fix, nice ideas, you know, on the digitalization transformation, on the sustainability transformation. It's really a collaboration, which is the only way for us to get there.
I want to thank you both for all of your time and actually all of the insight that you've given us.